The Alpha King was born to hunt vampires until he fell for one. The silver blade stopped a breath from her throat, and Sarah didn't flinch. She simply looked up at him with those impossible violet eyes and whispered, "If you're going to kill me, at least tell me your name first." Cale's hand trembled, something that had never happened in 300 kills, and he realized with creeping horror that the vampire kneeling before him in the moonlit clearing smelled like home. Wait, before the next revelation unfolds, if this mystery has already captivated you, let us know where you're following this story from. To ensure you don't miss unexpected claims, broken bonds, or awakenings under the moon, subscribe and stay close. Now, back to the scene. "I don't give my name to dead things," Cale growled, but his blade didn't move, couldn't move. His wolf howled inside him, a sound of confusion and desperate recognition that made his chest ache. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. She smiled then, sad and knowing. "Then I'll go first. I'm Seraphina, though most called me Sarah before." She gestured vaguely at herself, at the too pale skin and the fangs he could just glimpse when she spoke. "Before I became this. I don't care what you were." He pressed the blade closer, drawing a single drop of blood that shimmered black in the moonlight. His wolf whimpered, "You're a vampire. That's all that matters." "Is it?" Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "Then why haven't you killed me yet, Alpha King?" The title made him stiffen. Few knew his face. Fewer still would recognize him in his hunting leathers, far from the marble halls of the Northern Court. He'd made sure of that. His reputation was built on shadows and silver blades, on the bodies of vampires left burning in the dawn. "How do you know who I am?" "I can smell the power on you, like winter storms and ancient forests." She closed her eyes and, impossibly, a tear slid down her cheek. "And I can feel your wolf. His. Singing to me, isn't he?" Cale jerked back as if she'd struck him. His wolf was singing, a mournful melody of longing that he'd only heard described in the old stories. Stories about... No, the word came out strangled. That's not possible. Sarah opened her eyes, and the sorrow there nearly broke him. "I know. Vampires and shifters don't have mates. Everyone knows that. It's why your kind hunts mine. It's why this war has lasted 1,000 years. She stood slowly, carefully, her hands raised. "But that doesn't change what I feel when I look at you. Like I've been waiting my whole life, both lives, to find you." He should kill her, should drive the silver blade through her heart and watch her crumble to ash. That's what he'd done to every other vampire he'd encountered in his 32 years. That's what he was born to do, bred to do, what his father had trained him for before the old king had fallen to a vampire's fangs. Instead, he lowered his blade. "Tell me how you became this," he commanded, his voice rough. "And if I sense a single lie, I'll end you where you stand." Relief flickered across her face, quickly hidden. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking fragile despite the supernatural strength he knew she possessed. 3 months ago, I was human, just ordinary. I worked at a bookshop in Portland, lived in a tiny apartment with 2 roommates, spent my weekends hiking in the forest. Her voice grew distant. I loved the forest. Always felt more at home there than anywhere else, even though I didn't know why. "Because you have wolf blood," Cale said quietly. His senses, now that he wasn't actively trying to kill her, picked up the subtle scent beneath the vampire. Something wild and familiar. Distant, but it's there. "You're descended from shifters." She nodded. "I didn't know. My parents died when I was young. I was raised by humans who found me abandoned at a church." Her hands clenched into fists. "One night, I stayed late at the shop doing inventory. A man came in just before closing. He was beautiful, charming. Said he was looking for a first edition of Dracula. She laughed, the sound broken. The irony wasn't lost on me later. He turned you. He drained me first, left me dying in the stockroom between the poetry and philosophy sections. Her voice hardened. I woke up 3 days later in a basement I didn't recognize, with this burning thirst and a man telling me I belonged to him now, that he'd chosen me because he could smell the wolf in my blood, and he wanted to see what would happen when he made me one of them. Cale's grip tightened on his blade. Where is he now? Dead. I killed him the second night. She met his eyes, defiant now. I tore his throat out with the fangs he gave me, and I didn't regret it for a second. Then I ran. I've been running ever since, trying to figure out what I am, trying to control this hunger that never stops. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I've never fed from a human. I swear it. I've survived on animals, on blood bags stolen from hospitals. I won't become the monster that made me. He studied her, his supernatural senses testing every word for deception. Found none. If anything, she radiated a bone-deep exhaustion, a weariness that spoke of months spent fighting herself. Why are you here? This forest is pack territory. You had to know the risk. I came here to die. The words were simple, devastating. I heard stories about the Alpha King who hunts vampires. They say he's killed more of our kind than any other shifter alive. They say he's merciless, efficient, that he never fails. She smiled again, that sad, knowing smile. I thought, if I had to die, better it be by someone who would make it quick, clean, not like the others of my kind, who would drain me slowly just to see if vampire blood tastes different when it has wolf heritage. You came here for an execution. I came here for peace. She took a step closer, close enough that he could feel the unnatural coolness of her skin. But then I saw you, and my whole body came alive for the first time since I turned, like every dead thing in me suddenly remembered how to hope. Her hand lifted, hesitant, toward his face. Please, tell me you feel it too. Tell me I'm not going insane on top of everything else. He should step back, should end this conversation, and fulfill the purpose he'd been born to serve. Instead, he caught her hand in his free one, feeling the shock of contact run through them both like lightning. Cale, he said roughly, my name is Cale Blackthorn, Alpha King of the Northern Court, last of the Blackthorn line, sworn enemy of all vampire kind. His thumb traced over her knuckles, marveling at the smoothness of her skin. And yes, I feel it too. The confession hung between them like a blade suspended over both their heads. His wolf surged forward, desperate to claim, to mark, to protect. Every instinct screamed at him that this woman, this creature, was his, and nothing else mattered. But everything else did matter. His father's death, the thousands of shifters killed by vampires over the centuries, the responsibility he carried to his people, to his pack, to every wolf who looked to him for protection and justice. This is impossible, he said, but he didn't let go of her hand. I know. My people will never accept this. I know. The vampire covens will use you against me if they find out. They'll try to kill you just to hurt me, or turn you into a weapon to use against my pack. I know. Her fingers curled around his. I'm not asking you to choose me, Cale. I'm not asking for anything. I needed you to know. Before you do what you came here to do, I needed you to know that you mattered to me the second I saw you. Something cracked in his chest, some wall he'd built around himself after his father's death. He'd spent 10 years hardening himself, becoming the weapon his people needed. No attachments, no weaknesses, no mercy for the creatures that had taken everything from him. Now, here she stood, offering him everything while asking for nothing, and he wanted to rage at the cruelty of fate that would show him his mate only to make her his enemy. "I can't let you go," he said finally, "but I can't kill you either." Hope flared in her eyes, quickly dampened. What does that mean? It means he sheathed his blade, a decision that would have horrified his younger self. It means you come with me, back to my territory. We figure this out together. Your pack will want me dead. Probably. He pulled her closer, his wolf finally settling with a rumble of satisfaction. But I'm the Alpha King. What I say goes. And I say you're under my protection until I decide what to do with you. And if you decide to kill me later, then at least I'll have time to understand why the moon goddess would curse us both with an impossible bond. He touched her face, his fingers tracing the delicate line of her jaw. 3 months? You've been vampire for 3 months? Yes. Why? Because vampire mates are a myth. Because wolves and vampires are supposed to be natural enemies, our very biology incompatible. His mind raced through every legend, every scrap of lore he'd studied. But you're not fully vampire. You still have wolf blood, dormant but present. What if that's the bridge? Understanding dawned on her face. You think my wolf heritage somehow allowed the mate bond to form? I don't know what I think, but I know someone who might. He finally, reluctantly, stepped back. Can you run? Keep up with a wolf? She nodded. I'm fast, faster than I was human. Good. We have 20 miles to cover before dawn, and I'd rather not have to explain to my pack why I'm carrying a vampire bride style through the forest. A laugh escaped her, genuine and bright, and the sound wrapped around his heart like a vice. Vampire bride? That's terrible. I'm a warrior, not a poet, but he smiled, despite himself, despite everything. Stay close. There are other hunters in these woods, and they won't hesitate like I did. They ran through the darkness, her unnatural speed matching his supernatural endurance. He'd shifted to wolf form, his silver-gray coat gleaming in the moonlight, and she kept pace beside him like a ghost in the shadows. His wolf reveled in her presence, in the rightness of having her near, even as his human mind cataloged all the ways this could destroy everything he'd built. The Northern Court's territory began where the dense forest gave way to towering pines, their trunks marked with claw signs that warned outsiders away. Kale shifted back to human form as they crossed the boundary, quickly pulling on the clothes he'd stashed in a hollow tree. Sarah waited, her violet eyes tracking his movements with an intensity that made his skin heat. The main compound is another mile ahead, he told her. My inner circle lives there. My beta, my generals, my advisors. They're going to have questions.
What will you tell them?
The truth. At her alarmed look, he added, that I found a vampire with wolf heritage who may be the key to understanding why our species are enemies, that I'm bringing her in for study and interrogation.
Is that all I am?
Her voice was carefully neutral. A specimen? He crossed to her in 2 strides, pulling her against him with enough force that she gasped. You know you're not, but that's the story they can accept. The mate bond? He shook his head. That secret stays between us. For now.
Because they'd kill me if they knew.
Because they'd try to kill you, and I'd have to kill them to protect you, and everything I've built would crumble. His forehead touched hers. I need time, Sarah. Time to figure out what this means. Time to find a way to make this work without starting a civil war in my own pack. She nodded slowly. I understand. I'll be your prisoner, your specimen, whatever you need me to be. her hands fisted in his shirt. "But Cale, at night, when it's just us, can I be yours?" The question broke something in him. He kissed her then, a desperate claiming that tasted of moonlight and blood and impossible dreams. She responded with equal hunger, her fangs carefully sheathed, her body molding to his like they'd been made for this moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "At night," he promised, "when it's just us, you're mine, and I'm yours, no matter what comes." The compound rose from the forest like a fortress of wood and stone, blending seamlessly with its surroundings while radiating power and permanence. Lights glowed in windows, and Cale could smell the smoke from cooking fires, hear the distant laughter of pack members settling in for the night. Home. It had been home since his father built it 2 centuries ago, since the Blackthorn line first claimed these territories. Now he was bringing a vampire across the threshold, and he had no idea if he was being the greatest fool in shifter history or following the only path that made sense. Marcus, his beta and oldest friend, met them at the gate. The tall, dark-skinned wolf took one look at Sarah and shifted into a defensive stance, his eyes flashing gold with his wolf's presence. "Cale, what the hell is this?" "This is Seraphina. She's a vampire with dormant wolf blood, and I'm bringing her in for questioning." "You're bringing a vampire into our home?" Marcus's voice was flat with disbelief. "Have you lost your mind?" "Possibly." Cale kept his body between his beta and his mate, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed. "But she has information about the vampire who turned her, about their interest in wolves with shifter heritage. It's intelligence we need." Marcus studied them both, his sharp eyes missing nothing, not Sarah's careful stillness, not Kael's protective stance, not the way they both seemed hyper-aware of each other's presence. "And you couldn't have interrogated her in the forest and been done with it?" "No." Kael's voice hardened into command. "She's under my protection, Marcus. Spread the word. No one touches her without going through me first." "You're going to explain this to the council." "I'm the Alpha King. I don't explain my decisions to anyone." But he softened slightly. "I will discuss it with them tomorrow. Tonight, I need a secure room for our guest. Comfortable, but locked." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. "The East Tower. It's warded and has silver reinforced bars on the windows." His gaze flicked to Sarah. "No offense." "None taken." Her voice was quiet, respectful. "I understand your caution. If our positions were reversed, I'd probably just stake first and ask questions never." A reluctant smile tugged at Marcus's mouth. "I might like you, vampire. Don't make me regret it." He turned to Kael. "I'll have food and supplies sent up, and clothes. She can't wander around in—" He gestured at her blood-stained jeans and torn sweater. "That." "Thank you, old friend." "Don't thank me yet. Wait until you face the council." Marcus strode away, already barking orders at nearby pack members who'd gathered to stare at the impossible sight of their king with a vampire. Kael led Sarah through the compound, ignoring the shocked faces and whispered conversations. Let them talk, let them wonder. By tomorrow, everyone would know he'd brought a vampire into their midst, and he'd deal with the fallout then. The East Tower room was exactly as Marcus had described, comfortable but clearly a cell. A large bed dominated one wall, with thick curtains that could block out the sun. A bathroom connected to the side, and a small sitting area occupied the space near the window. The silver bars gleamed dully in the lamplight. "It's nicer than anywhere I've slept in months," Sarah said, running her hand over the soft bedding. "Thank you." "Don't thank me for locking you up." "You're protecting me. From your pack, from yourself, maybe from me too." She turned to face him. "I meant what I said in the forest. I won't hurt your people. Even if they decide to kill me, I won't fight back. I won't give them a reason to fear all vampires because of me." The nobility in her words made his chest tight. "You're not going to die. I won't allow it. You might not have a choice. I'm the Alpha King. I always have a choice." He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms one last time before he had to leave. "Sleep. Feed if you need to. Marcus will provide blood bags. Tomorrow we start figuring this out." "And tonight?" Her lips brushed his jaw. "Do you have to go?" "If I stay, I won't leave until dawn, and my pack needs to see me strong, certain, in control." He kissed her forehead, breathing in her scent. "But I'll come back, before sunrise. I promise." She nodded, understanding, even as disappointment flickered in her eyes. "I'll be here. Not like I can go anywhere." He forced himself to step away, to walk to the door. "Sira, what you said earlier about coming here to die? Yes? Don't give up yet. On yourself, on this, on us." His hand gripped the doorframe. "We're going to find a way through this. Together. Together," she whispered, and the word felt like a vow. The council meeting the next morning was exactly as brutal as Kyle had expected. The 5 elders who advised him on matters of pack law and tradition sat in a semicircle in the great hall, their faces ranging from shocked to furious. Elder Thornheart, the oldest among them, spoke first. "You've brought a vampire into our home."
"A creature whose kind killed your father, killed countless members of our pack. Explain yourself, Alpha King." "She has information," Kyle said calmly, standing before them with his hands clasped behind his back. "About vampire interest in shifters, about their experiments with turning those who carry wolf blood." "Then extract the information and eliminate her," Elder Moonshadow snapped. "Why is she still breathing?" "Because she may be valuable as more than just intelligence." Kyle had spent the sleepless hours crafting his argument. "She's been vampire for 3 months and hasn't killed a single human. She's maintained control in a way that suggests vampire nature isn't as absolute as we believed. If we can study her, understand how her wolf heritage affects her vampire side, we might find weaknesses in other vampires. Or you might be falling for a very elaborate trap," Elder Riversong said softly. She was the youngest of the elders, barely 60, and her eyes were sharp with concern. "Kyle, I've known you since you were a pup. I've never seen you hesitate with a vampire. What makes this one different?" "She surrendered," he said, which was true, if incomplete. "She came into our territory knowing what would happen. That's not typical vampire behavior." "It's not typical anything behavior," Elder Thornheart growled. "It's suspicious." "Everything about this situation is suspicious," Kyle agreed, "which is why I want time to investigate before making a permanent decision." "And if she's dangerous?" Elder Blackwood asked. "If she's playing you? Then I'll kill her myself." The words tasted like ash, but he said them with conviction. "You have my oath on that. But until I'm certain, she remains under my protection." The elders exchanged glances, communicating in the wordless way of wolves who'd known each other for decades. Finally, Elder Thornheart nodded slowly. 1 month. You have 1 month to determine her value and her threat level. After that, the council will vote on her fate." Agreed. It was more time than he'd hoped for. "Thank you, elders." "Don't thank us yet, boy," Elder Moonshadow said. "This decision could destroy everything your father built, everything you fought to maintain." She stood, her ancient bones creaking. "Pray to the moon goddess that you're right about her, because if you're wrong, the Northern Court will pay the price." Kyle found Sarah standing at the window of her tower room, sunlight streaming through the silver bars to paint patterns on the floor around her feet. She didn't burn in the sun like the old stories claimed, though he could see how she kept to the shadows, how the light seemed to drain her slightly. "The council?" she asked, without turning. "Gave us a month."
He closed the door behind him, noting the empty blood bags on the table. At least she'd fed. How are you feeling? Like a prisoner in a gilded cage. She finally looked at him, and he saw the shadows under her eyes. I didn't sleep. Kept thinking about what you said, about my wolf heritage being the bridge. She wrapped her arms around herself. What if you're wrong? What if this thing between us is just some cruel trick of vampire magic? It's not. He crossed to her, drawing her away from the window into the safety of the shadows. My wolf knows you, has known you from the first moment. That's not something that can be faked. Then what do we do? How do we convince your pack that a vampire can be trusted? We don't. Not yet. He tilted her chin up, studying her in the dim light. First, we figure out exactly what you are. You said the vampire who turned you wanted to see what would happen when he changed someone with wolf blood. That means he expected something different to occur. Different how? That's what we need to discover. He released her reluctantly, pacing the small room. In shifter lore, there are stories about hybrid creatures, wolves who mated with other supernaturals and produced offspring with traits of both species. But vampires and shifters? He shook his head. There's nothing. No stories, no myths, no cautionary tales. Just hatred and war. Maybe we're the first, Sira suggested quietly. Maybe that's why the mate bond formed, because we're meant to be the bridge between our kinds. Or we're an abomination that nature will correct by destroying us both. But even as he said it, his wolf snarled in denial. I don't believe that, though. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. The moon goddess. Sira's voice turned wistful. My grandmother, the human who raised me, used to tell me to pray to her, said the moon would protect me, guide me, even though I was just human. She laughed softly. Guess she knew something I didn't. An idea sparked in Kale's mind. Your grandmother. How much do you remember about your early childhood, before you went to live with humans? Almost nothing. I was maybe 3 when they found me. She frowned, concentrating. I remember trees, lots of trees, and singing. Someone singing to me in a language I didn't understand. Wolf song, Kale said with certainty. The old language that shifters use in ceremonies. He gripped her shoulders. Sira, what if you weren't just descended from shifters? What if you were born to a shifter pack? But I never shifted, never had any abilities, until you became a vampire. His mind raced with possibilities. What if your wolf was dormant, locked away somehow? And what if the vampire transformation, instead of destroying it completely, merged with it, created something new? You're saying I might be able to shift? The hope in her voice was painful to hear. I'm saying we need to find out. He pulled her closer. Tonight, when the moon rises, we'll try to call your wolf. And if there's nothing there, then we deal with that. But if there is, he smiled, fierce and determined, then you're not just a vampire with wolf blood. You're a hybrid, something that's never existed before. And that changes everything. The hours until moonrise crawled by with agonizing slowness. Kyle spent them preparing, gathering the items they'd need for the ritual. Sage for burning, silver dust for the circle, and a vial of his own blood. Shifter magic was old, primal, rooted in blood and bone and the wild places of the world. Sarah waited in her tower, and he could feel her anxiety through the growing bond between them. Every hour it strengthened, this invisible thread that connected his soul to hers. By the time sunset painted the sky in shades of crimson and gold, he could almost feel her heartbeat as if it were his own. Marcus met him in the courtyard as he prepared to return to the tower. The pack is restless. Rumors are spreading about the vampire in the East Tower. Some of the younger wolves are talking about taking matters into their own hands. Let them try. Kyle's voice was cold. I'll tear apart anyone who touches her.
That's what I'm afraid of. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. Brother, I've known you my whole life. I've never seen you like this. What's really going on? I can't tell you. Not yet. Can't or won't? Both. Kael met his oldest friend's eyes. Trust me, Marcus, I know what I'm doing. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're about to commit treason against your own kind for a vampire you met yesterday. Marcus's expression softened. Talk to me. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. The urge to confess nearly overwhelmed him. Marcus had been there through everything, through his father's death, through the brutal years of claiming his throne, through every battle and loss and triumph. He was pack, family, the brother Kael had never had by blood. But this secret was too dangerous. The mate bond with a vampire would paint a target on Sarah's back that even Kael's protection might not be enough to defend against. After tonight, he promised, if this works, you'll understand everything. If what works, you'll see. He gripped Marcus's shoulder. Keep the pack in line. No one approaches the East Tower without my permission. Use force if necessary. You're going to owe me so many explanations. Add it to my tab. Kael managed a tight smile. And Marcus, thank you for trusting me even when I can't tell you why. That's what pack is for. Marcus returned to the main hall, leaving Kael alone with his thoughts and his fears and the growing certainty that everything in his life was about to change. The moon rose full and silver, bathing the tower room in ethereal light. Sarah stood in the center of the circle Kael had drawn with silver dust, her violet eyes wide with fear and hope. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. You don't have to do anything. Kael moved around the circle, lighting sage at 4 points, north, south, east, west. Just listen. Let the magic guide you. What if my wolf rejects me because of what I am now? Then we'll find another way. But he didn't believe that would happen. His own wolf recognized her, sung to her, and that recognition had to mean something. He completed the circle and stepped inside, standing behind her. His hands settled on her shoulders, grounding her as he began to speak in the old language, the wolf tongue that predated human speech. Words of calling, of awakening, of summoning what lay hidden. Sarah trembled under his touch. I feel something inside me. It's... Don't fight it, Kael murmured. Let it rise. It hurts. Her voice broke. Kael, it burns. That's the transformation beginning. Your body remembering what it forgot. He held her tighter as she gasped. I've got you. Let go. The change hit her like a thunderbolt. One moment she was standing upright. The next she was on her hands and knees, her body convulsing as bones began to shift and reform. But it was wrong. The transformation stuttered, starting and stopping, her human form flickering with something wild and furry before snapping back. I can't, Sarah cried out. It won't. I can't hold. Your vampire side is fighting it, Kael realized. He dropped to his knees beside her, pulling her against his chest. You have to merge them, not let one dominate. Sarah, listen to me. You're not just vampire. You're not just wolf. You're both. Let them coexist. I don't know how. He pressed his wrist to her lips, the one he'd cut before starting the ritual. Drink. Take my blood. Let my wolf guide yours. She hesitated only a heartbeat before her fangs sank into his flesh. The sensation was electric, intimate in a way that had nothing to do with feeding and everything to do with the bond between them. He felt his blood flow into her, felt his wolf essence mixing with her vampire nature, and something clicked into place like a key turning in a lock. Sarah gasped and pulled away, his blood staining her lips. Oh gods! Kael, I can feel... The transformation took her completely this time, swift and brutal and beautiful. Her body elongated, reshaped, fur spreading in a wave of midnight black. When it finished, a wolf stood where Sarah had been, smaller than most shifters, more graceful, with those same impossible violet eyes. And she was perfect. Kael shifted in response, his own wolf demanding to run with his mate. They stood nose to nose in the small room, and he felt the rightness of it in his bones. This was what the moon goddess had intended. Not vampire or shifter, but something that bridged the gap between both worlds. He shifted back first, his human form kneeling before her wolf. Come back now. The first shift is hardest, but you can do it. Think of your human shape. Remember what you were. The wolf that was Sarah tilted her head, considering. Then she closed her violet eyes, and moments later the transformation reversed. She ended up naked in his arms, laughing and crying at the same time. I did it! I actually did it! She buried her face against his chest. I have a wolf!
After all this time, after everything, I have my wolf. You do. He held her close, his heart swelling with pride and love and fierce protectiveness. You're a hybrid, Sarah, the first of your kind. Part vampire, part shifter, wholly unique. She pulled back to look at him, wonder shining in her eyes. What does this mean? It means you're not just my mate. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. You're the key to ending the war between our species. Living proof that we're not incompatible enemies, but two halves of a greater whole. Your council will never accept that. They will. Because you're going to show them. He helped her stand, wrapping her in the blanket from the bed. Tomorrow, we tell the pack everything. About the mate bond, about your hybrid nature, about what we've discovered. They'll try to kill me. They'll try, but they'll fail. His voice hardened with alpha command. You're mine, Sarah. My mate, my queen. And anyone who wants to harm you will have to go through me first. Even if it means civil war? Even if it means losing everything you've built? Even then. He cupped her face in his hands. I was born to hunt vampires, trained for it, lived for it. But I was made, truly made, for you. And I choose you, over duty, over my pack, over everything. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. He kissed her again, deeper this time, pouring everything he felt into the connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. The moon goddess brought us together for a reason. Maybe to end this war. Maybe to create something new. Whatever it is, we face it together. Together, she agreed, and sealed it with another kiss. The announcement the next morning sent shockwaves through the northern court. Kael stood before his entire pack, Sarah at his side, in clothes borrowed from the pack house, and declared her his mate. The silence was deafening. Then the hall erupted in chaos. Shouts of outrage, demands for explanation, accusations of bewitchment. Kael weathered it all with calm authority, his hand clasped firmly around Sarah's, refusing to let the storm of anger separate them. Enough! His alpha command cracked like a whip, forcing every wolf into submission. I understand your shock. I understand your fear. But what I'm telling you is the truth, witnessed by the moon goddess herself. The moon goddess would never bind wolf to vampire, Elder Thornheart thundered. It's unnatural. Then watch. Kael nodded to Sarah. Show them. She stepped forward, her courage evident in every line of her body. Before the assembled pack, she called her wolf. The transformation rippled through her, swift and sure now that she'd done it once. And moments later, a midnight black wolf stood in the great hall. The pack gasped collectively.
A vampire who could shift. It shouldn't be possible, yet there she stood, proof of the impossible made flesh. Serafina carries wolf blood from her birth, Cale explained as Sarah shifted back to human form. When she was turned vampire 3 months ago, the supernatural transformation didn't destroy her dormant wolf. It awakened it. She is a hybrid, the first of her kind, and the mate the moon goddess chose for me. But she's still a vampire, someone shouted from the back. She feeds on blood. I feed on animal blood, Sarah said clearly. I have never harmed a human, and I never will. I understand your fear of my kind. I've seen what vampires can do, what they've done to your people. But I am not them. She looked around the hall, meeting hostile gazes with steady calm. I am wolf and vampire both, and if you'll let me, I want to help end the war between our species. How? Elder Riversong asked, genuinely curious despite her suspicion. How can one hybrid end a 1,000-year conflict? By proving that coexistence is possible, Cale said. By showing both sides that we're not as different as we believe. Sarah's existence challenges everything we thought we knew about vampires and shifters. Or it's a trick, Elder Moonshadow spat. A trap set by the vampire covens to infiltrate our pack and destroy us from within. If that were true, she would have killed me the night we met, Cale countered. She had opportunity and surprise. Instead, she surrendered, asked me to end her suffering because she couldn't bear what she'd become. Pretty words. But words prove nothing. Then let me prove it through action. Sarah's voice rang with determination. Test me. Challenge me. Put me in situations where a vampire would show their true nature. If I fail, if I prove to be the monster you believe I am, then you can execute me with your Alpha King's blessing. The pack murmured at this, surprised by her boldness. Even the elders looked taken aback. You would volunteer for trials? Elder Blackwood asked. If it means a chance at peace, yes. Sarah moved closer to Cale, drawing strength from his presence. I never asked to become a vampire. I never wanted to be the enemy of wolves. But if fate has made me a bridge between our worlds, then I'll walk that path no matter how dangerous it is. Cale's heart swelled with pride. His mate was offering herself up as a sacrifice, knowing full well the pack might use the trials as an excuse for execution. And she did it without hesitation, without bargaining for safety or mercy. The council will design appropriate trials, Elder Thornhart said finally. 3 challenges to test her nature, her loyalty, and her control. And if she fails, even one, Elder Moonshadow pressed, then the mating will be declared false, and she will be executed as a threat to the pack. Elder Thornhart's ancient eyes fixed on Sarah. Do you accept these terms, vampire? I do. Sarah didn't even look at Cale for confirmation. When do the trials begin? Tomorrow at dawn. 3 days, 3 trials. May the moon goddess have mercy on your soul. The first trial came with the sunrise. Sarah stood in the training yard, surrounded by the pack, as Elder Moonshadow explained the challenge. This trial tests your nature, the elder announced. Before you is a human volunteer from the town nearby. He has agreed to participate in exchange for payment. Your task is simple. Spend 1 hour alone with him in a sealed room. Feed him, talk to him, do whatever you wish. But if you harm him in any way, if you take even a drop of his blood, you fail. Cale's jaw clenched. They designed this trial specifically to trigger Sarah's vampire instincts. A human alone with a vampire for an hour was like dangling raw meat in front of a starving wolf. I accept, Sarah said calmly, though he could see the fear in her eyes. The human was a middle-aged man who looked more curious than afraid.
He followed Sarah into the stone building at the edge of the yard, the door sealing behind them with the weight of finality. An hour. Kale had to endure an hour not knowing if his mate was fighting for control or succumbing to her vampire nature. His wolf paced restlessly, demanding to break down the door and rescue her, but he forced himself to stillness. She had to do this alone. Marcus stood beside him, silent support in the face of the pack's watchful eyes. Everyone waited, tense and expectant, for the moment when screams would echo from the sealed room. But the screams never came. When the hour ended and the door opened, Sarah emerged looking exhausted but triumphant. The human walked out behind her, laughing at something she'd said, completely unharmed. "Well," Elder Moonshadow demanded, "did she feed?" "Not a drop," the human confirmed cheerfully. "We just talked. She told me about books, asked about my family, helped me practice my Spanish for an upcoming trip. Nicest vampire I've ever met. Though, to be fair, she's the only vampire I've ever met." Relief flooded through Kyle so powerfully he nearly staggered. Sarah caught his eye across the yard and smiled, tired but genuine. "The first trial is past," Elder Thornhart announced. "Tomorrow brings the second challenge." That night, Kyle held Sarah in his private chambers. The council had agreed she'd earned the right to stay with him between trials. She curled against his chest, trembling from the aftermath of so much stress. "It was hard," she whispered. "His heartbeat, the smell of his blood, every vampire instinct screamed at me to feed." Her fingers clutched his shirt. "But I kept thinking about you, about us, about the future we could have if I just held on." "You were magnificent." He kissed her hair, her temple, any part of her he could reach. "I've never been more proud of anyone in my life." "2 more trials. What do you think they'll be?" "Tomorrow will test your loyalty. Probably they'll force you to choose between vampire and wolf allegiances." He stroked her back soothingly. "And the final trial will test your control under extreme circumstances." "Will you be there?" "Every moment. I won't leave you alone again." He tilted her chin up, studying her face in the moonlight. "Sarah, if this becomes too much, if they push you too far, we can run. Leave the Northern Court, find somewhere new to start over." "And abandon your pack, your responsibility?" She shook her head. "No, we do this the right way. We prove to them that change is possible, that old enemies can become new allies. Otherwise, we're just running from the problem, and it will follow us wherever we go." "When did you become so wise?" "When I met an alpha king who believed I was worth saving." She kissed him softly. "Rest now. Tomorrow, we face whatever comes together." The second trial was exactly as Kyle had predicted, a test of loyalty. The pack had captured a vampire, one of the rogues who wandered the territories causing trouble. They brought the creature before Sarah, bound in silver chains, and gave her a choice. "This vampire has killed 3 humans and 2 shifters in the past month," Elder Riversong explained. "We would normally execute him immediately, but today the decision is yours, Seraphina. Do you stand with your birth species and advocate for mercy, or do you stand with your wolf heritage and call for justice?" It was a trap no matter what she chose. Mercy would make her seem loyal to vampires, proving she was a threat. But calling for execution would cement her as a traitor to her own kind, forever marking her in the eyes of any vampire who learned of it. Sarah approached the bound vampire slowly. Up close, Kale could see the madness in the creature's eyes, the bloodlust that had consumed whatever humanity he'd once possessed. "What's your name?" she asked quietly. The vampire spat at her feet. "Traitor! Abomination!
You wear wolf skin and call yourself vampire? You're nothing." "Maybe, but at least I'm not a murderer." She turned to face the elders. "I choose justice, not because I'm trying to prove my loyalty to wolves, but because I believe in accountability. This vampire has killed innocent people. He's shown no remorse, no desire to control his nature. Keeping him alive would only lead to more death." "So you vote for execution?" Elder Moonshadow said, satisfaction evident in her voice. "I vote for justice," Sarah corrected. "If a wolf had committed these crimes, wouldn't you demand the same? My decision isn't about species, it's about right and wrong." The elders conferred briefly before Elder Thornheart nodded. "Your reasoning is sound. The second trial is passed." As they led the condemned vampire away, Sarah swayed on her feet. Kale caught her before she could fall, holding her close as the pack dispersed. "I can feel them," she whispered. "The other vampires out there, like a distant call in my blood, and I just condemned one of them to death."
You chose the only path that makes sense. He guided her away from the training yard toward the forest's edge. "Come on, you need to run, to let your wolf out. It'll help." They shifted together and ran through the moonlit woods, two wolves moving as one. Sarah's midnight black fur gleamed beside his silver-gray coat, and for a few precious hours they could forget about trials and politics and the weight of two worlds resting on their shoulders. When they finally returned to human form in a small clearing, Sarah collapsed into his arms, tears streaming down her face. "One more trial, just one more, and this is over." "One more," he agreed, "and then you're officially mine, and anyone who challenges that faces me directly." "I'm already yours," she kissed him fiercely. "Trial or no trial, mate bond or no mate bond, I'm yours. Nothing will change that." The third trial nearly broke her. The elders led them to a stone chamber deep beneath the compound, a place where the pack held their most dangerous prisoners. Inside, chained to the wall, was another vampire, but this one was different. This one was female, young, and terrified. "This vampire was captured yesterday," Elder Blackwood explained. "She's newly turned, barely a week old. She's killed no one, but has already shown signs of bloodlust. Your final trial is this: help her gain control or execute her. You have until sunset." Sarah stared at the frightened vampire, recognition flickering in her eyes. "You want me to save her or kill her?" "We want to see which choice you make," Elder Riversong said, "and how you handle it." The elders left them alone. Sarah, Kale, and the trembling vampire girl who couldn't have been more than 18 when she'd been turned. "Please don't kill me," the girl begged. "I didn't ask for this. A vampire attacked me at college, left me to die. I woke up like this, and I don't know what to do. I'm so hungry all the time, and everything smells like blood, and I just want to go home." "Shh." Sarah knelt before her, reaching out slowly. "What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Rodriguez. I'm a freshman at Portland State. Or I was." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Am I going to die?" "Not if I can help it." Sarah looked at Kale. "The trial is about control, right? Teaching her control?" "That's one interpretation." He crouched beside her. "But they're also testing whether you'll choose to save a vampire or eliminate a potential threat to humans. Those aren't mutually exclusive choices." Sarah turned back to Emma. "Listen to me. I was where you are 3 months ago, newly turned, terrified, desperate for death. But I learned to control the hunger, to live as both vampire and something more. I can teach you. How? By accepting what you are while remembering who you were." Sarah began talking, her voice low and soothing, explaining the techniques she'd developed for managing the bloodlust, how to feed on animals without killing them, how to use meditation and breathing to push back the hunger,
how to hold on to humanity in the face of vampire nature. Kale watched his mate work, pride and love swelling in his chest. She could have killed Emma quickly, passing the trial through the easier path. Instead, she chose to fight for another lost soul, to prove that vampires weren't irredeemable monsters. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky outside the chamber. Emma slowly calmed, her panic subsiding as Sarah's lessons took root. By the time sunset approached, the young vampire was sitting quietly, her fangs retracted, her bloodlust under tentative control. "You saved her," Kale said softly. "I gave her a chance." Sarah stood, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. "The rest is up to her." When the elders returned and saw Emma sitting peacefully, they exchanged long looks. Elder Thornhart approached the young vampire, studying her carefully. "You have control?" "Some," Emma answered. "Sarah taught me. I can fight the hunger now. It's still hard, but it's possible."
"And what will you do with this knowledge?" "Try to be better than the vampire who made me," Emma's voice strengthened. "Find others like me who are turned against their will. Teach them what Sarah taught me. Maybe create something different. A community of vampires who choose humanity over monstrosity." The elder turned to Sarah. "You could have killed her. It would have been the simpler choice, the one most likely to satisfy those who still doubt you. Why didn't you?" "Because I remember what it felt like to be her, lost and afraid and wishing for death. If someone had shown me mercy then, taught me control, I could have avoided so much pain." Sarah met the elder's gaze steadily. "I'm not asking you to trust all vampires. I'm asking you to see that we can change, that we can choose to be different. Emma is proof of that." Elder Thornhart was silent for a long moment. Then, incredibly, she smiled. "The third trial is past. You've shown nature, loyalty, and control. But more than that, you've shown compassion and wisdom. The Council acknowledges you as true mate to the Alpha King." Relief crashed over Kyle like a tidal wave. It was over. She'd passed. They'd won. But before he could move, Elder Moonshadow stepped forward. "I acknowledge the trial results, but I cannot accept this mating." She looked around at the gathered pack members who'd crowded into the chamber. "Who stands with me? Who believes this is wrong, regardless of what the trials showed?" A handful of wolves stepped forward, maybe 20 out of the 200 present. It was a small number, but they looked determined, ready to fight. "You would defy the Council?" Elder Thornhart demanded. "I would preserve the pack's purity," Elder Moonshadow shot back. "This vampire has bewitched our king. She's corrupted him with her unnatural bond. We should never have agreed to these trials. We should have killed her the moment she crossed our borders." Enough. Kale's alpha command thundered through the chamber, forcing every wolf to their knees except the elders. "You have two choices, Moonshadow. Accept the Council's judgment and remain part of this pack, or challenge me directly for leadership. Those are your only options." The elder met his eyes, calculation visible in her expression. She was old, powerful, but no match for an alpha king in his prime. Challenging him would be suicide. "There is a third option," a new voice said from the chamber entrance. Marcus pushed through the crowd, his face grim. "The Eastern Territories have risen in rebellion. 3 packs refuse to acknowledge Seraphina as queen. They're demanding you step down or face civil war." Kale's blood ran cold. This was what he'd feared, the fracturing of everything he'd built over 10 years of careful leadership. How many? About 500 wolves, led by Alpha Redmane of the Crimson Peak Pack. Marcus's expression was apologetic. "They've already attacked one of our border outposts. 2 dead, 5 injured."
Then we march to war. Kale's voice was hard as stone. He turned to Sarah. This is what accepting me means. Battle, bloodshed, pack against pack. Are you sure this is what you want? She looked at the gathered wolves, at the mixture of acceptance and hostility, at the uncertain future stretching before them. Then she smiled, fierce and determined. I passed 3 trials to stand at your side. I'm not backing down now just because some wolves can't handle change. She moved to stand beside him, taking his hand. We face this together, whatever comes. Together, he agreed, and knew he'd never meant anything more. The march east took 3 days, gathering loyal packs along the way. By the time they reached Crimson Peak territory, Kale commanded a force of 800 wolves, with Marcus as his general and Sarah as his queen. The rebel packs met them in a valley between territories, Alpha Redmane at their head. He was a massive wolf in his shifted form, red-furred and battle-scarred, with hatred burning in his eyes. Kale Blackthorn, Redmane's voice echoed across the valley. You've brought your vampire whore to war. How fitting. I've brought my mate and queen, Kale corrected coldly. Stand down, Redmane. You can't win this fight. I don't need to win. I just need to kill her. Redmane's wolves began to shift, preparing for battle. Remove the corruption from your bloodline, and we can move past this. Otherwise, we'll remove it for you. Sarah stepped forward before Kale could stop her. You want to kill me? Then face me directly, one-on-one. If I fall, your rebellion succeeds. If I win, you accept me as queen and swear loyalty to the Northern Court. Sarah, no, Kale began. It's the only way to end this without massive bloodshed. She looked back at him, love and determination shining in her violet eyes. Trust me, trust my wolf. A vampire challenging a true alpha? Redmane laughed. This will be quick. They faced each other in the center of the valley, both shifting to wolf form. Redmane dwarfed Sarah, his massive red wolf easily twice her size. But size wasn't everything, and Sarah had spent months learning to survive against impossible odds. The fight was brutal and swift. Redmane charged, confident in his superior strength. But Sarah was faster, her vampire speed combined with wolf agility, making her nearly impossible to catch. She danced around his attacks, landing quick strikes that drew blood and frustrated her opponent. When Redmane finally connected, slamming her into the ground with crushing force, Kale nearly broke ranks to intervene. But Sarah rolled with the impact, using her vampire resilience to absorb damage that would have crippled a normal wolf. She came up snarling, her midnight fur gleaming with blood, both hers and Redmane's. The tide turned when she went for his throat, fangs and wolf teeth working in tandem. Redmane tried to shake her off, but she held on with supernatural strength, bearing him down to the ground. When she finally released him, he lay panting and defeated, his throat torn but not fatally. Sarah shifted back to human form, standing over her fallen opponent. I could kill you. By all rights, I should. But I'm not here to create enemies. I'm here to change hearts. She extended a hand. Join us. Help us build something new. Or walk away and live with the knowledge that you were beaten by the very thing you despise. Redmane shifted back, staring at her hand like it might bite him. Then, slowly, he took it, letting her help him to his feet.
You fight well for a vampire. He looked past her to Kale. And you chose well for a king. He dropped to one knee, his pack following suit behind him. I acknowledge Seraphina as queen and pledge loyalty to the Northern Court. The valley erupted in howls of acceptance, the sound echoing off the mountains like thunder. Kale crossed to Sarah and pulled her into his arms, ignoring the blood that covered them both. "You magnificent, terrifying woman," he murmured against her hair. "You could have died. But I didn't, and now your pack is whole again." She pulled back to smile at him. "Besides, I had to prove I could defend my position as queen. Can't have people thinking you chose me just because of the mate bond." "I chose you because you're extraordinary," he corrected. The mate bond just made it official. The journey back to the Northern Court was triumphant, their forces swelled by the addition of Redmane's packs. But Kale knew the real work was just beginning. Acceptance within his own territories was one thing. Changing centuries of hatred between vampires and shifters was another entirely. That night, as they camped under the stars, Sarah found him standing at the edge of their encampment, staring into the darkness. "What are you thinking?" she asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "That we've won a battle, but not the war. My pack accepts you now, but there are dozens of other packs across the continent, hundreds of vampire covens. They'll hear about us eventually, and not all of them will be as open-minded as Redmane proved to be. So we keep fighting, keep proving that change is possible." She rested her cheek against his back. "Emma's already started gathering other vampires like her, ones who were turned against their will, who want to live differently. She calls them the Twilight Covenant. They're learning control, building community, reaching out to shifter packs to propose peace talks. It's dangerous work. All worthwhile work is dangerous." She moved to stand beside him, their hands intertwining. "But we're not alone anymore. We have allies, people who believe in what we're building." He turned to face her fully, cupping her face in his hands. "I love you. I don't think I've actually said those words yet, but I do. Completely, irrevocably, forever. I love you too." Tears shimmered in her violet eyes. "From the moment you held a blade to my throat and I saw mercy in your eyes, I loved you." They kissed under the starlight, the mate bond singing between them like a living thing. When they finally broke apart, Kyle rested his forehead against hers. "The moon goddess brought us together for a reason," he said. "To bridge two worlds, to end an ancient war, to create something new." "Or maybe she just wanted us to be happy," Sarah suggested with a soft smile. "Maybe the rest is just a bonus." "Maybe." He kissed her again, softer this time. "Either way, I'm grateful. For you, for this, for the chance to build a better future. Together. Always." 6 months later, the Northern Court hosted the first peace summit between shifters and vampires in recorded history. Representatives from 12 wolf packs and 8 vampire covens gathered in the Great Hall, eyeing each other with suspicion, but also cautious hope. Kale stood at the head of the table, Sarah at his side wearing a crown of silver and moonstone, the mark of a shifter queen. Emma sat with the vampire delegation, representing the Twilight Covenant that had grown to over 100 members. "We gather today not as enemies, but as potential allies," Kale began, his voice carrying the weight of command. "For too long, our species have been at war. We've killed each other over ancient grudges, perpetuating cycles of violence that serve no one. But my mate, my queen, is proof that another path exists." "She's an anomaly," one of the vampire representatives said, though not unkindly. "A hybrid that shouldn't exist.
How does her existence change anything for the rest of us? Because if vampire and shifter can coexist in one body, then our species can coexist in one world, Sarah answered. We're not asking you to forget the past or pretend centuries of bloodshed never happened. We're asking you to consider that the future doesn't have to repeat those patterns. Pretty words, a shifter alpha muttered, but vampires are predators. They feed on humans, on us. How do we trust them not to hunt our young? The same way we trust you not to slaughter our covens, Emma spoke up. By creating laws, establishing boundaries, building accountability. The Twilight Covenant has already proven that vampires can feed without killing. We've developed techniques, found alternatives. It's possible to be vampire without being monster. The debate raged for hours, voices rising and falling as old wounds were examined and new possibilities explored. Kale watched it all with a mixture of hope and trepidation, knowing that this single summit wouldn't solve everything, but might plant seeds for future growth. By the time sunset painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, they had reached a tentative agreement. A ceasefire in the territories represented, with provisions for monitored interactions and consequences for violence from either side. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was a beginning. As the delegates departed, Marcus approached Kyle with a bemused expression. "Never thought I'd see the day. Vampires and shifters at the same table, and nobody died." "It's a miracle," Kyle agreed. "A small one, but I'll take it. She's changed everything, you know." Marcus nodded toward Sarah, who was saying goodbye to Emma and the other Twilight Covenant members. "Changed you most of all. The king who came back from that hunt 6 months ago isn't the same one standing here now. Is that a bad thing?" "No." Marcus smiled. "I think it might be the best thing that ever happened to us, to all of us." That night, Kyle found Sarah standing on the balcony of their chambers, looking out over the forest that surrounded the compound. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her back against his chest. "Tired?" he asked. "Exhausted, but hopeful." She turned in his arms. "Did you ever imagine, that night in the forest when you held a blade to my throat, that we'd end up here? Not in 1,000 years." He kissed her forehead. "I thought I'd kill you and move on to the next hunt. Instead, you became my whole world. What do you think comes next? After the ceasefire becomes peace, after our species learn to truly coexist? I think we build a life together, have pups, or hybrid pups, or whatever children the moon goddess blesses us with." He smiled at her surprised expression. "Did you think I hadn't considered it? A family, a legacy that bridges both worlds." I didn't dare hope. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm still part vampire, Kyle. I don't know if I can even have children. Then we'll find out together. And if we can't, we'll adopt. Or we'll mentor young wolves and vampires who need guidance. Or we'll just grow old together and let that be enough." He wiped away her tears. "The point is, we have time. Time to figure it out, time to build something lasting, time to love each other without the world threatening to tear us apart." "I like the sound of that." She kissed him, pouring all her love and hope into the connection. No more battles, no more trials. Just us. Just us, he agreed. Finally. The moon rose full and bright over the northern court, bathing them both in silver light. Two souls that should have been enemies, brought together by fate and choice, and a love that transcended ancient hatreds. The Alpha King who was born to hunt vampires, and the vampire who taught him that some things were worth changing the world for. Together, they watched the night unfold, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to prove that love could bridge any divide. But tonight, in this moment, they were simply Kale and Sarah, mates, partners, the beginning of something that would reshape the world. The story of the Vampire Queen and her Alpha King spread across the territories, becoming legend even as they lived it. Some called it a fairy tale, others called it a cautionary tale, but those who witnessed it firsthand knew the truth. It was a love story that changed everything. And in the end, that was all that mattered.